Hello, this is really giving self-tape and I'm sorry about it. I would like to yap about possibly the only thing that I have extensive credentials in, and that is not doing things. I am a quitter. But in all seriousness, I do think that knowing when to let go of something or when to stop doing something is actually a very valuable skill. And I would like to have as nuanced a conversation as possible. Every situation is different. Nothing is black and white. But I guess a good place to start is, why would you actually want to stop doing something? Why should you stop doing something? I once watched a YouTube video, actually nothing to do with this, but about how to redecorate your space or freshen up your space for free. And I'm pretty sure literally the first piece of advice was actually to remove things rather than add something. I'm sure we are all aware of that in some form because of the decluttering epidemic that we all fell victim to, myself very much included. I think that was so popular because it does speak to people on some kind of level, clearly. It rings true for us that we want to be able to let go of these meaningless things and that we feel like we have too much in our lives. It's very freeing to let go of that stuff, and it can really clear your mind. And I absolutely think the same logic can be applied to our lives. Another method that they mentioned in the video was actually to remove everything completely from a room and add things back in slowly as they were needed, and maybe trying to find a new place for them in the room that served the environment better. I read Patrick Grant's book Less pretty recently, and he talks a bit in that book about how it's very difficult to figure out what we actually want, because as we get more and as we want more, our want increases. So it's not like we want something, we get the thing, great, we don't want anything anymore. We actually, as we have access to more and more things, we want more and more things. So it's actually a lot easier to figure out, what do I need? If something is not enriching you and your life, and that could be anything, a job, a relationship, a career, a habit, an item that you own, I don't know. If you feel trapped by that thing, or you feel like it's only for other people's approval, if it's not going to work, there's no need to force it into your life and force yourself to be okay with it, because you are the one at the end of the day that needs to live your life, no one else. I think it's really important to let go of some things, or at the very least have a conversation with yourself. Have an honest, serious conversation with yourself in which you can evaluate the place that that thing holds in your life, and whether you're going to continue to allow it to hold that place, or can you change its place in your life. I just want to be really clear that I don't want to encourage the idea that we don't owe anyone anything. I actually think that we do owe each other, every single one of us, kindness, respect, acknowledgement of each other's humanity. I do think that there are ways to evaluate and discuss your relationships whilst holding kindness and empathy for the other party involved. Sometimes the greatest act of respect that you can do for someone is to set boundaries with yourself in that relationship, or to remove yourself from that relationship completely. And that, you know, can be done with care and consideration, and in order to avoid negative feelings, not actually to pursue them. But all of that is to say that stopping something, quitting something, removing something from your life, that actually can often be a necessary step. It can be scary, it can be difficult, especially to stick to your guns. People might question you. You might question yourself, because sometimes, especially if you're making a very big decision to stop doing something, in some ways you are going a little bit against a social norm that if you feel something is wrong in your life, there's a thing that can fix that. It's pretty normal for most people to think nowadays that there's always something more you can be doing, or there's always something greater that you could be achieving. For example, at my job that I very recently just started, a lot of people, even within my workplace, have asked me, okay, so what are you working towards after this? Like, what are the next steps for you? And I'm like, guys, I literally just got here. Like, can I enjoy being here for 2 minutes before I need to think about the next thing? More often than not, I think the idea that you can fix everything by doing more, consuming this product or this luxury item is actually just capitalism and consumerism trying to put a plaster over a ruptured internal organ, basically. All of that can be summarized with the simple phrase that sometimes less is more. Stunning and brave, I know. Okay, so now we know why we might want to stop doing something. We've tried everything else. Maybe let's try removing something. We want to enrich our life and we don't want to feel overwhelmed by life. But how do we know when we need to stop doing something and we're not just running away from a difficult experience? So whilst I am a massive advocate for the idea that life should actually be relatively easy for people, because controversial take, I actually don't believe that we were born just to suffer. But that absolutely does not mean that everything should be without challenge, compromise, or without effort. I'm actually pretty sure most of us can just logically deduce from our own life experience that some of the most enriching things we have experienced have been difficult, or have challenged us in some way, or have taken us a long time, or they've changed us and we've come out a different person on the other side. Absolutely, if you're working towards a goal that you want to achieve, there probably are going to be a fair amount of things along the way that you don't want to do, but are going to serve the wider experience of it. Unfortunately, it is just down to individual preference as to how much they are willing to put up with that they don't want to do. So one of my partner's friends, they're a musician, he was speaking about how he evaluates whether he's going to take a gig or not. So for him, there were three potential things that he might want out of a gig: getting to play good music, getting paid good money, and getting to hang out with or spend time with good people. Most of the time, you're not going to get all three of those things, especially if you're just starting out as an instrumentalist. So he decided that for him, as long as the gig had two of those things, he was going to be happy to take it. For other people, they might just be happy with one of those things, or you might be okay with one and not the other. I think if we do look deep within ourselves and truly self-analyze, we can relatively easily figure out whether we are just trying to run away from something, or whether it is actually best to stop that situation entirely. To be honest, most of us can probably instinctively figure that out, but in the moment it can be very difficult actually, especially if you have lots of different opinions being spouted at you from all different directions. You're receiving advice that you don't know whether it's even in good faith or not. You don't fully understand the other person's perspective and what might drive them to even give you that advice in the first place. Here are just some things that I have tended to take into account when I'm kind of evaluating my situation, I guess. So what actually is the outcome, or what are the potential outcomes of this situation if I persevere with it? Do I want that outcome? Why do I want or not want that outcome? Does that align with the kind of life that I want to build for myself? What experiences am I going to have along the way in the process of continuing this thing? Do I enjoy those experiences? Do I want to have those experiences? Let's say everything works out and I achieve the ideal outcome that I want. Am I going to be able to live the life that I want with the consequences of having done that thing, of being in that outcome? Because you don't just get there and then you're just there. Life continues. What does life continuing look like? What am I losing out on, or what am I sacrificing in order to do what I'm doing? How much am I having to give up? How important to me are the things that I'm having to sacrifice? For how long am I going to have to give those things up? For how long am I willing to give those things up? Will I get those things back, and when or how? Why does sacrificing those things feel so painful? It's extremely basic, but you might find it helpful to literally write a pros and cons list. I have done it before, and even if it doesn't give you an immediate answer, it allows you to look at the things in front of you and evaluate them. So let's say you've got all these cons in front of you, all of the things that you're needing to sacrifice. Are the things that you're perceiving as a sacrifice, are they actually permanent sacrifices, or are these factors changeable? So to use a completely random example, you go to uni and you're not gelling with any kind of friend group there. Okay, that might not necessarily be a permanent sacrifice. That's kind of a changeable thing. You might just need more time with that. Or another example, you start a new job and you're feeling really lost and you feel like you don't understand what's going on. Again, that's a very common feeling when you start a new job, when you're learning something new. Every workplace is like its own little microcosm. You might need more time to get used to everything. Ultimately, let's say you're a medical student and you absolutely love studying all about biology. You love taking your tests. You just love like devouring that information. But you don't quite enjoy sitting down with a patient and talking to them, trying to get the information from them in order to diagnose them. Well, unfortunately, if you're trying to be a doctor or a GP, that's kind of going to be the majority of your job, right? Okay, great. So from having that discussion, obviously on the surface, on those examples, it's really easy to be like, okay, well, the changeable factors, they're not a good enough reason to stop doing something. And the unchangeable factors, like talking to patients being your entire job, that's a good enough reason to not want to do it. But look at your list. You've got more than one reason. Everything is contextual. So you might be really shy and you don't like talking to patients, but you care so much about wanting to be a doctor, and that really aligns with the life that you want for yourself so much that you know that it's a skill that you're willing to work on, and working on helping people is going to allow you to enjoy the other parts, the other experiences of your job that you do find easier and you do find more immediately enjoyable. Not making friends immediately at uni, yeah, probably give it more time. Same with starting a new job. Give it at least until you have a better understanding of how things work before you decide whether that is for you or not. That's probably not reason enough alone for you to think, I'm gonna quit my course or I'm going to quit my job. But paired with the other things that are going on, it could be the nail in the coffin for you. I don't know. It's all going to be relative to the entire situation and to what you as an individual perceive as within reason for you. So yes, very useful to make a pros and cons list, very useful to think about these different factors as, are they changeable or are they permanent? And yes, absolutely, evaluate them individually. But then please think about them in relation to all the other factors. Some of them might cancel each other out. Some might outweigh the others. On the other hand, yes, growing, changing, learning, they're not comfortable experiences. Often we do need to push past our comfort zone so that we can benefit. I read a great Substack essay from Ayushi Tucker from the Milk and Cookies newsletter, a very cute name, that's called How to Live with the Discomfort of Learning Instead of Running from It. And I'm literally just going to read from the first few paragraphs because it excellently puts this feeling into words. There is a stage in every new thing you try where you're forced to live with the gap between what you imagined yourself doing and what your hands, your voice, your body can actually produce. This stage is not glamorous, it's clumsy, repetitive, humbling. It's also the exact place where learning is alive. Most of us don't quit because we aren't capable of learning. We quit because we can't stand the feeling of being terrible in the meantime. We live in a world that loves to showcase the before and after, the highlight reel, the transformation photo, the look at me now moment. But the middle is quieter and harder to watch. This middle, the discomfort of learning, is unphotogenic, so we forget that it exists. Or worse, we assume that if we're in it, it must mean we aren't cut out for the thing. But the discomfort is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're present in the process. It helps to remember that mastery is mostly muscle memory disguised as confidence. Think about the first time you drove a car and how everything was overwhelming at once. Driving didn't suddenly become simple because the world changed. It became simple because you sat in the discomfort long enough for your body to stop treating every action as foreign. Still, the middle is painful because it tests your ego. Most of us don't want to look foolish, even in private, but learning demands a temporary surrender of pride. You can't learn while protecting your image at the same time. You have to allow yourself to sound clumsy, to look unpolished, to admit you're not there yet. It feels like loss in the moment, loss of dignity, loss of certainty, but it's really the ground clearing itself so that something else can grow. There we go. Beautifully said. Is it just presently uncomfortable, and it's worth sitting through that because I will gain something at the end. Am I uncomfortable or am I distressed? Again, might be a tricky question because I absolutely think sometimes the discomfort of learning probably can cause you to feel distressed because it may trigger all sorts of feelings that are indicative of deeper unresolved issues surrounding self-worth, for example. But it is worth an ask whether your emotional response seems in proportion to the situation, because that could help point you in a direction. For me, I have just spent 3 years doing my acting training. As anyone who has been down that route will know, you have to be very vulnerable in front of a lot of people, do a lot of extremely embarrassing things, and look very unskilled, untalented. And it will be in front of everyone you know, all of your peers that see you day in, day out, and they will be judging you. I had to grow up very quickly. I have not found a lot of playfulness in my life. So I often found the feeling of enforced play quite distressing, and I knew that was to do with my own issues. However, I found that when I did surrender to the embarrassment, sometimes I would have a great experience, but I still ended up really unhappy because I did not want where it was taking me. I did not enjoy the job of a professional actor, regardless of the issue of my own self-worth and the embarrassment that I was feeling on my own back. When I was thinking, do I really want to be an actor? Do I really not want to be an actor? I had to kind of put that specific distress aside and look at the other factors, because I knew that was so tied to something else that I felt about myself. One thing I will say after all of this evaluating is that if it is at all possible, try not to make a more permanent decision when you're feeling burnt out. You could debate whether you can actually burn out of something that you genuinely love doing. You know, you might be inclined to take burnout as a reason that, yeah, this definitely is not for me. I definitely need to quit this thing. And I don't necessarily think that's always true. Hot take, yet again, I am once again saying there is nuance. I do think you can burn out of something that you love doing, temporarily fall out of love with it, and it not be a definite sign that you need to quit doing that thing. But I do think personally that it's a definite sign that you're not engaging with it in a healthy way if you've actually managed to reach the point of burnout with that thing. Can you change how you're approaching this thing, even just temporarily, just to get yourself out of the depths of despair and overwhelm, so that you can evaluate your relationship to this thing with even a slightly clearer mind? Can you take a little bit of a break from this thing and allow yourself to miss it? Is there an extension on a deadline that you can get? Is there a trusted person that you can reach out to for help and support in this time? Can you set a boundary with yourself that for now, you're just going to give your bare minimum and you're going to be okay with that, because you need to get yourself out of where you are right now? For me, when I started experiencing burnout in the second year of my acting degree, regardless of what I wanted to do, I had to do the bare minimum because I couldn't make myself do anything more than that. I would worry about doing my work. I would sit down to do my work and I would just cry because it was literally in front of me. I had nothing else to do at that moment and I still couldn't do it. So I had to be okay with doing the bare minimum, even though it felt to me like a betrayal of myself, of my work ethic. It felt like a betrayal of the other people around me who I was seeing every single day and could see me not putting in as much effort as I used to put in. It was extremely hard, and I spent too much of that period beating myself up that I wasn't doing the things, rather than just allowing the not doing of the things to heal me. Please take the time that you need. Please stop operating on full blast, even just temporarily. Do less, because nothing you do is going to stop you feeling the way that you feel. Is going to make you feel worse. And knowing that you took the time to clear your mind a bit better is going to give you peace of mind for whatever decision you end up making. Then you know that you didn't make an impulsive decision when you were faced with a difficult situation. Unfortunately, sometimes sticking out just that little bit longer can help give you the clarity that you need. When I was experiencing my unfortunately very brutal and public burnout, almost every single advisory figure told me that this is just part of the process that every actor goes through. Your love for the craft and your motivation to do this is definitely going to come back. So by sticking it out, I learned that, yep, that might be true for some people. It's definitely not true for me. If I hadn't done that, maybe I wouldn't know that for certain. Maybe I would have doubted my decision not to pursue acting as a career. I don't know, but the only thing I do know is that I feel very confident with where I'm taking myself now, because I definitely gave myself enough time and had enough experiences to evaluate for myself. Not only did I choose to continue my studies for the rest of the year, it was in second year that this happened. By that point, I was definitely clear-headed enough to know that I didn't want to do this as a career, but I then continued for an additional year, 3 years, to complete my degree and graduate, despite knowing full well that it was honestly the last thing I wanted to do, both finish the degree and pursue that career. I cannot explain the mental torment that came with making that decision. I knew I was doing something honestly harmful to my mental health, but I had a variety of different reasons for which I needed to carry on and finish my degree. Quitting is not always taking the easy option. Often it's actually extremely difficult. It requires a certain level of bravery and self-trust. You will probably need to be prepared to hear a lot of opinions that you don't want, you don't need, and you didn't ask for. Sometimes they might be relatively inconsequential opinions to your life, such as when I dropped out of my first course, someone from school reacted by saying, "Oh, but it looked so good on Instagram," which honestly, I didn't even take offense to, and I just kind of found funny and served as a grave reminder of how we can wrongly trust social media. And also made me take stock of how what I thought were very few meaningless posts had actually been shaping someone else's entire opinion of me and perception of my life. But still, sometimes they will be a lot more painful to hear. I had family members tell me that they're disappointed in me, that I give everything up, that it wasn't good enough for me, like as if I thought I was better than the institution that I left, as opposed to having been completely shattered by it. After I had dropped out, I went to visit my old school to see my teachers, and a teacher that I really trusted, the first thing he said to me was, "I told you so." How caring. You know, I sat there, I watched a whole staff room of teachers discuss what they thought I should do next with my life and what I should have done, as though I had failed and fallen from grace, never to return. I'd strayed from the path that was so clearly laid out for me to just walk if I had only been strong enough. It was the heights of lockdown. I was very lost and disillusioned. I was quite frankly aimless. I was lonely. I was grieving a lot of different things in my life, not just this experience. But I found my way through that, and that taught me how resilient I can be. And I had so many more life experiences, so many more work experiences than I would have had if I had stayed in that place for the next 4 years. Now I'm able to look back on all my choices, my failed first degree, my second degree that I got but I didn't want to be a performer by the end of it. I know now that everything has worked out for the better, and I am still able to use the degree that I got in other ways that I'm much more happy with. But even if I didn't know that now, even if I was still in the depths of the immediate aftermath and things being shite and things not having sorted themselves out yet, what good would it do me to carry around regret about what's already happened? Absolutely nothing. It's only going to make me feel worse. You will need to find love and kindness for yourself, understanding and forgiveness for the times that you've made choices as we all have, that did not work out in the way that you expected them to. Sometimes you have to actually just do something in order to find out that you don't like doing it. You're only ever acting to the best of your knowledge at that time. Once you have more information, then you can change your actions. It literally helps nothing for you to beat yourself up, to carry regret over a choice or choices or whatever it is that did not work out in the way that you thought it would, you wanted it to, or expected it to. Whether you can see it now or not, it will have helped you in other ways, even if they're not the ways that you intended. And I know it's such a cliche that there's something to take from every experience, but I fear it is a cliche because it rings true. Even if what you take from the experience is that, great, I get nothing from doing that. I get nothing from that experience. Fantastic. Now you know that. Not to be stunning and brave, but if you reframe the situation into what you can take from it, what you can be grateful for from the experience, and what you can be grateful for from yourself, honestly, that can be really healing. I know full well that someone else could look at my life and be like, fucking hell, you've tried and failed at so many things. You keep thinking you're making the right choice, and lo and behold, you've yet again made the wrong choice. Sort yourself out. But for me, doing all of these things has taught me pretty much everything I now know today, has made me into the person that I am. It's crazy that I've had so many different experiences of life at such a young age, and that I have so much information about myself and what I actually do like doing. And now I can use that going forward, and I already am using that going forward. For me, I would be so much worse off if I just continued to buy into everything that was told to me, that I was the thing that was broken and needed to fit myself into the mold that the world had created for me, and I needed to suck it up and be happy with it. Like, no. Fuck you. I would just like to make this video slightly meta for a moment, and thankfully not in the Mark Zuckerberg sense, and just acknowledge that I am making a video that may be perceived. I have been a citizen of the World Wide Web for a very long time, and that relationship has taken many forms with varying degrees of health. I have a lot of complicated feelings about making something, about sitting here and saying something, whether it is the right thing to do to add to an already completely oversaturated, overwhelming mass of stuff that is posted on the internet. And do I have literally any answers about that? No. But I just wanted to say that I am conscious of nuance being lost in any discussion at all, and the fact that I can only speak from one perspective, from one life experience, which is my own. I have my own privileges, I have my own barriers. All this to say, while I have created this video, I do not expect a single person to watch this, but if they do, I am hopeful that they are able to take what feels relevant to them, take what they need, and ignore or question what doesn't. Privilege absolutely can and does play a role in our ability to do certain things and our ability to stop doing them. I have been fortunate enough that my life at the time, for whatever reason, allowed me to stop doing certain things, or leave certain relationships, or get rid of things that have been harmful to me. I have been able to do that many times, and there have been many other times in which I have not been able to do that. There have been many moments of my life where I was not able to find gratitude, I was not able to find kindness, I was not able to feel strength in my decisions. I'm very aware that the perspective I have now is partly because I've gained a certain level of distance from these things, either through the passage of time or literally through moving away, and partly because my life now is just genuinely so much better than it's ever been, probably at any point in my life. And all of that makes having a more positive mindset, or even a more neutral mindset, which I aim for, a lot easier. Reaching a more peaceful point of life for me was not without struggle and, dare I say, suffering. But dare I also say that for you, making peace with maybe needing to quit something, maybe wanting to carry something on, seeing where things goes. Not to be like things will get better, but things will get better. Maybe these thoughts have helped you in some way or resonated with you in some way, or they absolutely may not have. Even to my 600 subscribers, even to literally one viewer, I don't want to come across as someone that's trying to speak definitively, but I really enjoyed trying to put into words some of my findings from the last 6 or 7 years. I would like to end on the note that there is not one individual path that is laid out for you in life, and you're either choosing to walk along it or you're not. There is no right or wrong decisions in life. No matter what you choose to do, no matter what you end up doing, you can find a way to make that work for you. You can find a way to be content, to be happy. I'm glad now that I finished my 2nd degree because I know that I'm able to use it now in ways that I really enjoy. I lost a lot of money, but the world didn't end. I had a lot of fun experiences over the final year, even though a lot of them were very difficult as well. And yes, I know that now, but I only know that because I've gone down this path. If I had dropped out of that course at any point, I'm sure I would have found a way to equally enjoy my life and have new and fun experiences. And in that version of me, I'm sitting there and probably saying the exact same thing. I'm so glad I just left because it wasn't for me, and now I'm in such a better position. Having a bit of space from things, having a bit of distance, really just gives you that perspective when you're not sucked into everything in the immediate moment. Like I said earlier, maybe temporarily removing yourself, taking a step back, maybe that's what you need in order to come back. Maybe you don't need to remove something completely. Maybe you need to find a different place for something in your life. Maybe you don't do any of those things and you continue exactly as you are, and you will still be okay. You will still be a worthy person. There are some things I know I still do that I would like to stop doing, but I'm not ready yet to start tackling those things. Ultimately, my message is that sometimes less is more. Personally, I'm aiming for a relatively simple life. At the moment, my life is relatively simple. It's very healing and it's allowing me to come back more into myself again. Once I feel more secure and more prepared to, then I can start to complicate things a bit more if I want to. If you watched this, I hope there was something you could take from it, and I hope there was something that you disagreed with as well. I'm sure I've probably said something that watching this back in 2 days, I'll be like, you are wrong, or I wish I'd said that differently. But we can only be where we are, which is in the present. I am very much starting to ramble, so I'm going to stop now. Thank you. Have a good day. Goodbye.